Welcome to the channel Offgrid. Today we're going to speak about how much I paid for my off-grid property in Sweden. And if you like this stuff, hang around and subscribe. And I want to tell you something about life first. And the thing is, life is like snow, so everything can be messy. You walked all over, it's dirty. Next day there's snowfall and it's just fresh. Like no one has ever been there before. And you can basically do whatever you want. It doesn't really have to be that expensive. And you can just send it. So I spent here 105,000 Swedish for the property. That was in November 22 in northern Sweden. The place, like the building, was pretty shit. The roof was good though. And for obvious reasons then I needed material, I needed tools. So it doesn't really stick on 105,000. And you need recreational stuff as well. So if you want to go on the lake, you might need a boat. You want to have a porch where you can sit in the summer. You want to have a hot tub. So it's pretty much up to you how much you want to put in there. But let me show you what I sort of spent, what I did over the year. So back then I didn't really take many pictures, but I got still the booklet, which I got by the agent. And this is as well I found it away online on Hemnet, which is the Swedish webpage for houses and properties. And back then I had a girlfriend down south, 400 kilometers, and it was quite easy to come up here, have a look on it. And then I bought it, and it took maybe 2 days roughly. So it was all pretty quick. And giving you the stats, I got 2,500 square meters, which is 0.6 acres. I'm 60 meters close to the lake. And I don't really have neighbors. They are houses, but the people don't really stay there. They're maybe 2 weeks in the summer. Some of them are not really finished or not whatever started to work on. My next neighbor is 3 kilometers away who lives here permanent. And as you see here, I got a bunch of trees. I'm in the green, I'm in the woods. I had to cut down trees as they were putting too much shade into the windows, especially back there and one here. And as you can guess, the state wasn't the best for 10 grand, which is pretty obvious. So let me get started and go through the pictures. On the first picture you see was still red. I started and painted it black. I have to do another paint job, just because you need to do twice to have it look good. And the problem was with the front porch. The front porch was connected to the house. The water would stand there and wasn't able to evaporate. And basically started to mold. And the mold went into the house. So I had to open the front of the house and rebuild a bunch of studs. And then re-insulate and close it again. As well I had to change the window, as my neighbor once shoveled snow or used the machine and he blew some rocks into there, I think. So the glass was broken. Getting to the second page, you see the interior. As you see, it's not looking nice. So when I came here, there was still a wall here and just the door, so it was basically 2 rooms. And I want to have an open space, as I'm being here alone anyways. And the walls were rotten, so I had to open the wall and pretty much take it out. I had to open this wall as well and rebuild a bunch of stuff there. In here there was no floor, so I bought insulation and built the floor. The floor is made of wood now, and the other floor was full of mouse pee. So I basically had to clean that up, and I put laminate on top. The other walls, some of them were finished, some were unfinished. There was some nice furniture left. A bunch of stuff I just burned outside. The garage was full of stuff as well, so I had to drive that to the tip. And I used some gyprock, I used some wood for the walls. But as you can see, that's quite a lot of work, and the agent back then was like, oh, why don't you just take it down and rebuild the whole place? But I did like it here, and I did like the big barn door as well, so I really want to keep the place, and I did. On the cabin, the cabin looks actually nice, but it wasn't really nice. So most of it I painted black, and in the front, where your entrance doors, there's still a bunch of logs that are rotten. So I started to take off the rot and the mold. So I used the chainsaw and just cleaned them. and as well the eggs. And I have to rebuild some logs, which I'm gonna do in the spring, maybe now. Unfortunately I can't paint, so that's a job I finish in April. And I want to make the whole thing livable so people can stay in there. I put a wood stove in there, insulated between the logs. I'm gonna chink, which will be a huge job actually. And as well I will put in flooring and a ceiling. And that's pretty much it. So as you hear, there was a lot of work on it. And how do I do the work? Well, guess what? I need tools. So buying a place is not the first thing or not the last thing you have to spend. You need the tools. So I had to buy a bunch of power tools. First off, a drill, that's $350. Generator, $400. Lawnmower, $500. The list goes on. Skilled saw, circular saw, sander, grinder. To get material here, you of course need a car and a trailer. So I had to buy that as well. And then the building material itself, I don't really know how much I spent. Gyprock wasn't too much. And then here the flooring, $500. The other flooring, $200 or $300. And of course you need a bed, another $500. I'm gonna write down tonight exactly and then, or roughly, and then I'm gonna tell you. This wood stove, which is pretty much my kitchen, $1,500. I still have to build a kitchen, but the thing is I don't really need it. Like everything I do, I just use a piece of wood, cut it, I use the pan, I cook there, I clean the pan straight up after I use it, or I clean it outside. As I don't have running water, I don't have a sink at the moment, so I might do that in the spring. And to be fair, I'm not the biggest fan of work inside. Then you want to have a cool place, you want to have a nice place. So I started to build a carport and a raised porch with the hot tub. Hot tub was $1,500. The front porch. And as well I want to have walk tracks, just because it gives much more of a holiday feeling. It's much better having those walk tracks. And those materials, including swimming pontoons for building a float and wood for the float, cost me around $8,500. Windows weren't too much. I paid, I think, $400 in windows. I got glass actually as well. They are 2x1 meter glass, and I want to build a tree house or a dugout or both. But I'm not so sure if I'm gonna keep the place for the next year. And if I buy another property and I sell this, then I might keep the glass and I'm just gonna use them there. I needed a water pump, but that wasn't much as $100. Those water hoses, they were another $100. So those are just random numbers that are coming on top, which you don't really think of, but you of course have to pay them. Tax, when I bought the place, is 1%. So that was $100, because I paid 10 grand, and that's not much at all. So I would say it's quite achievable. It's quite easy to keep as well. At the moment I'm not paying much tax, so I'm maybe paying $100 tax. So that's not much. And I tried to use and keep the stuff that was still good. So I got lucky with the stovepipe. The stovepipe was in here. And then I kind of MacGyvered that one onto the stove. And sometimes it was difficult. For example, the stove is 150 kg. And I carried it alone in here. And then I had to lift the stovepipe and I had to move the stove under the stovepipe and let the stovepipe down. So it can be tricky, it can be difficult. But of course it's worth to do it yourself. So it's pretty much up to you how much you want to do, how much you invest, and where you cut the line. I personally want to have the float, so then on top I have to spend money for the outboard engine, which is another $1,100. I bought that brand new. You should have a snowmobile when you live here. That was another $1 grand. You don't need it, but it's much cooler to have one. My good boy, you were cheap. You were $200. Yeah. You're a cheap boy. And that's all I can tell you now. So if you wonder, can you do it? Can you send it? Yeah, of course you can do. It depends on the country. You have to choose the country. Like this property in the United States or in Canada, way more money. Like 10x probably, or even more. That's the way I'm doing here. That's the way I'm living. It's a bunch of work and a lot of pleasure as well. So I keep you posted, I keep you updated on other stuff. If you want to know more, just hit me up. If you want to know more about the process, I'll give you a response. I generally answer all comments unless I'm not really sure what I should say. Some comments are not really where you can answer. See you next time around. You're a good boy.